in companies, not always a product team would be tied to pipeline metrics. We had a really important change and shift within the organization that product growth and engineering are all tied to the same pipeline metric. So everyone had the same goal and we were all working towards the same goal. So we weren't competing and launching conflicting campaigns or initiatives or features. So that was an important shift into aligning the teams. Here's the goal and we all need to get there versus you are responsible for X and I'm for Y. And what you do is contradicting to what I do, but we all have the same customer base and we would confuse them if we reach out with different asks.
Welcome to ThriveCast. So my name is Gururaj and I have Katya Fuentes with me. Katya, let me know if I'm saying your name right. And we're going to talk about the Amplitude Plus Plan revolution. And in today's topic, and to all our listeners, here's a quick story. Till date, most of you have heard about Amplitude. It's a public company. Very likely you're using the product as a daily driver as well for product analytics. So we'll not discuss much about what is Amplitude. Instead, we'll focus more on the transformation to a PLG company. The backstory goes something like this. On October 17th of 2023, Amplitude's famously young and dynamic CEO, Spencer Skates, he announced the Plus Plan. And this podcast is primarily about the launch of the Plus Plan, the transformation that happened within, and the path forward. To give a little bit of context, Amplitude has been powering a lot of PLG companies, but itself was not a PLG-enabled company. They had a starter plan, a free low-tier plan, if I would say. The conversion rates were much lower. And we saw that from Kyle and Francisca's recent blog post on the growth unhinged, that the conversion rates were much, much lower. Their growth and enterprise plans were doing really well, ACVs upwards of about 30K or so, and there were many internal problems. Sales-led was the dominant acquisition channel, in some ways subterfuging the self-serve. The pendulum had completely swung over to the sales-led side. Amplitude was seen as expensive and priced intransparent. There was also a lot of angst amongst the sales team, in some ways, whether self-serve will cannibalize their quota and so on and so forth. In today's podcast, we're going to dig a little more into what's really going on and maybe get some inside scoop. With that said, we have Katya. And Katya, welcome to ThriveCast. How are you?
Thanks. I'm great. Hey, Guru. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Great intro, by the way. I feel like I have nothing to add.
Sorry, thank you. So Katya, maybe to our listeners, could you introduce yourself a little bit? Maybe your background and what do you do at Amplitude?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Katya Fuentes. I'm originally from Ukraine, but currently based out of Bay Area, California. I've been driving product-led growth for the past 6 years, more recently at companies like Rippling and Amplitude. Currently, I am at Amplitude, and my role is monetization, product-led growth, and most specifically, I'm responsible for both self-serve conversions out of the newly launched Plus Plan and the product-led sales pipeline.
Super. And to the listeners, there's a backstory between Katya and I. We were having a conversation earlier, and she challenged me to prepare a little more for this particular podcast. So I'm doing some more due diligence than I'm usually doing. So thank you, Katya, for that.
Of course.
So Katya, maybe tell us a little bit about the backstory with the launch of the Plus Plan. I know the blog post is very apparent that Amplitude had a self-serve plan. I think it was called as a starter plan. The acquisition rate was high, but the conversion rate was very low. And the marketing teams and the sales team at Amplitude were really not even pushing for that particular plan. It was hidden really well within the pricing pages. And all of the acquisition channels, all of the activation channels were pretty much sales-led. So how did this transformation come into being? Maybe tell us a little bit of the inter-channels on what happened on that. You went product-led earlier and then not. And then you had self-serve and then not. And then after some time, you're back again to the self-serve and the PLG path. Tell us a little bit of the inter-story of how did that come to being?
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, there has been a lot of back and forth during the last 10 years. Amplitude was founded in 2012. It's a pretty experienced public company, so there has been quite a few back and forth. It started off as pure PLG company more than 10 years ago. Then they moved to sales-led growth, product-assisted motion, going after large enterprise deals, but luckily kept their freemium plan up and running in the background. It worked really well for mid-market and enterprise segments. However, it was very expensive for startups and SMBs. It was going from $0 to 20 to 40K. Sounds a little bit ambitious. So it was not working for some of the startups and SMBs. And it also added a huge amount of friction on top of funnel because the plans that we had, growth and our enterprise, were not self-serve. So if you're on a free plan and you want more, you need more usage or outcomes or features, you need to speak to a salespeople. And we know that startups don't really like talking to salespeople as much. They just want to put their credit card and purchase the plan right now, this second. So that was a huge gap in the market that we had. And in early 2022, growth and product teams started paying more and more attention to our freemium plan that was up and running in the background, trying to improve the activation rate, trying to pay attention on what should be included in that plan and how to move users up the PLG escalator. And they started to pay more attention to that plan and gained even more conviction that self-serve plan is the path forward. Fast forward to now, we have now both product and sales-led motions that work really well together, which is really exciting and really rare to do successfully. So that's the backstory on why and what.
Maybe for our listeners who might not be very familiar with these terms, could you share a little bit about what were these pricing plans? I know you mentioned growth and enterprise plans. You also used a term called as PLG Escalator. Could you describe a little more of what these are?
Yeah, sure. There's 3 plans at Amplitude. Starter, which is the free plan. There used to be 3 plans: Starter, Growth, and Enterprise. So going from $0 to 40K on Growth, there's nothing in between. And we know that in order to sell to enterprise, users have to go up the PLG escalator, which is the term introduced by Elena Verna in her PLG course and in her writings, which means that in order to sell to enterprise, you first have to acquire a user, then build the team, and then sell to enterprise. So it goes up the escalator, and you can't skip that. You can't skip from a free to sell to enterprise, to a user, to an enterprise. You first have to gain their trust and show the value of your product. So the user has to experience the value prop, the get to aha moment, and build the habit with your product before they move to build the team, and then they sell to enterprise. So it can take years, and it does take years at Amplitude. So that was also a challenge. There was this gap that is just empty. So we were losing these customers to our competition because we didn't have this offering in between.
And what was behind the scenes? And I think your sales team was also very comfortable with the growth in the enterprise plan, right? If I understand correctly, the organization as such was not yet prepped or not prepared to handle the PLG escalator. So tell us a little bit of the story of the growth teams, the sales and the marketing teams. How were they organized? How were they going after the customers, primarily for the growth in the enterprise plans? Could you maybe even start with, was acquisition done through sales-led and marketing-led? I'm guessing yes. Or were you also finding users who were starting with the starter plan and then the sales team or the SDRs would call them up and then sell to? So how did the sales team and the marketing team go and approach the acquisition before the launch of this particular plan?
Yeah, great question. And I think Francisco mentioned it well in the blog post in Unhinged that we used to have primarily product-led sales strategy, which is identifying customers who are ready to buy growth before they raise their hand. So we had these 4 campaign types: hand raisers, overages, sign-up campaigns, and usage PQAs, product qualified account campaigns. So before this self-serve plan, it was all specifically product-led. It was all based on these product-led sales strategy product campaigns. So for hand raiser, for example, someone raised their hand, want to try the premium feature. The salesperson would reach out because, hey, you were interested in behavioral cohorts and it's not on your plan. And that's how the conversation would start. With the overages, the primary value metric of Amplitude is usage, monthly tracked users. So if you are stuck at your current usage, you can't go further. You have to talk to sales to unlock more usage to buy the next plan, as well as usage, which is really fascinating campaign type that we implemented at Amplitude, which is basically identifying the customers who are ready to buy before they raise their hand based on the attributes of their org, based on the actions they've taken, based on the analysis that we've done, who purchased in the past and who are they, why did they purchase, what did they do right before the purchase, how big are they. So we analyze all of those attributes, and found lookalike accounts to sell the growth plan to before they even think that they need it, but before they realize it. So the primary tactic before the Plus plan was product-led sales, product campaigns. And of course, the sales-led as well, primarily sales reaching out to specific customers and based on what they've done in product. After they hit certain milestones within the product campaigns, so they reached their usage, they raised their hand, the sales would reach out and close the deal. So that's how it was before self-serve.
Yeah, let me reduce it in my head and maybe to the benefit of the listeners as well. You had about 4 different types of customer types, if you will, and you bucketed them into 4 different types, just more of a hand raisers, overages, general PLS, and usage. And each of these buckets, I'm imagining that now our starter plan user signs up to your product and somehow gets into a premium portion of the product, clicks on it, is trying it, and then he fails to use the product. And that's when somehow, somewhere, the analytics would be associated with that particular user that they were trying a premium feature. And then somebody from Amplitude will automatically put them into any of these 4 buckets. And very likely, in this particular case, it's a hand raiser for a premium use feature. And then that particular portion of the team will call them up or reach them out either within the product, I'm guessing, or outside the product, either through calls or emails to understand what they were planning to do and then try to sell them to the growth plan. Is that the fair understanding of this is what was happening before?
Yeah, pretty much that's correct. And it still is happening now. We didn't ditch our product-led sales motion. We just layered that PLG on top of it. And as you described it correctly, someone would stumble upon those like gated features, or if it's usage, then it's a mix of attributes and actions. It's not like you just signed up for a product yesterday and by mistake stumble upon on this paid feature and now we want to sell you the world. No, it was more thought through. You are supposed to be more matured. You've signed up for a starter plan. You've gone through all these milestones to reach aha moment and to build a habit. You've repeatedly come back to the product. And after that, if you've hit those milestones within a usage campaign, we would reach out to you or you've gone over your limit. But yeah, then the sales team. So the way it works in product, they would click on contact us to learn about this feature or whatever it is. And the sales team would have a little task in the Salesforce, in their Salesforce world, and reach out to that customer with a specific sequence of specific outreach, personalizing, looking at their dashboard and personalizing based on where they are.
That's beautiful. Yes. That's beautiful. I think you touched upon that. So what changed after you did the launch? I will not go into a lot more details about why did you launch it. I think Kyle and Francisca has already covered that in their blog post. But now could you describe the new world that started with the launch of the Plus plan? So what changed? Maybe if you could describe it either from the team standpoint, or how did marketing change? How did growth change? How did sales comp change? How did reach out to the customers and these campaigns change? Maybe we'll go one at a time. It's a lot of questions there. But let's start with this. How did the new plan influence the team structure, the organization structure?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Right around the launch and a little bit before that in 2023, we had a huge change that in companies, not always a product team would be tied to pipeline metrics. We had a really important change and shift within the organization that product growth and engineering are all tied to the same metric, to the same pipeline metric. So everyone had the same goal and we were all working towards the same goals. So we weren't competing and launching conflicting campaigns or initiatives or features. So that was an important shift into aligning the teams. Here's the goal and we all need to get there versus you're responsible for X and I'm for Y. And what you do is like contradicting to what I do, but we all have the same customer base. And we would confuse them if we reach out with different asks. So that was an important shift that happened. So the way the growth team was structured and still structured today, there weren't too many changes to how the structure is. So we have the same, like one big growth team and 3 pods under the growth team: acquisition, retention, and monetization. So both PLG and SLG live under that monetization pod, under the same manager, under the same leadership team. So that didn't change. So how did sales react and how did we align sales and growth teams with this new self-serve plan? I can talk a little bit about that. So at first, sales teams were resistant to the idea of launching a self-serve plan rightfully so. You could imagine that they might think we're taking their bread, taking their cannibalizing growth pipeline, enterprise pipeline by launching this really cheap, much cheaper plan that people can take advantage of, right? So they were resistant to this idea and worried that we would take their bread from them. But that wasn't the case. And even when we launched growth monetization campaigns, we would have to be really careful tiptoeing around the customers that sales would be talking to or already talking to. We have to be really careful not to include them in the outreach. Because imagine the salesperson is talking to a prospect about growth plan, 40K, and then here we are sending them an email about the $49 plan. So that was a little bit of a fine line in the beginning. Then team leaders realized that there were concerns and, rumors around, will we be displaced and will we have a cannibalized pipeline? And the leadership started with a strong enablement for the sales teams, paving very clear swim lanes for each. Here's who we should sell Plus Plan to, and here's who we should sell Growth Plan to. So very clear kind of personas. This is a good fit for Growth Plan. This is a good fit for Plus Plan based on specific orgs, attributes, actions, and usage. So that alleviated some of that stress and concerns from the sales side on what's going to happen once it's live. And in terms of comp structure, you asked, it changed also after, right a little bit before the self-serve Plus Plan launched on October 17th, 2023. Sales teams started getting rewarded for guiding people towards the self-serve plan versus before they weren't. And even though they were rewarded, but it wouldn't count towards their quota, but it was still not a waste of time. They were rewarded, so they were also incentivized to talk to them. Because sometimes what would happen is a person doesn't know, do they want Plus Plan or Growth Plan? What's a better fit? And they don't know. So they have to get on a call with the salesperson, and sometimes the end result is the Plus Plan. But if they weren't incentivized, a salesperson would feel like it was a waste of time, right? So they had to change the comp structure to incentivize and to shift things around.
That's very interesting. And I'm also doing my research around the pod structure where the growth teams have PLG and SLG working together. The incentives to sell a self-serve plan by sales team is pretty new to me. And I was always under the assumption that the self-serve team, which is let's say the PLG team, will focus on selling the self-serve plan, incentivizing the end users to discover the value within the product, have right marketing channels. But the sales team would not touch them at all. So this is new information to me, that the sales team will also have a conversation with the customer and then help them make a decision between these plans, right? And I think that's probably the right way, where you have both of them leading into the same org structure. Both of them are reporting to the same teams, right? Maybe the same head of growth, and the incentives are aligned this particular way. Let me ask maybe a few questions around this.
And just to add, honestly, it's not the best way, it's the only way. Because you will get a lot of resentment and hostility in terms of, oh, this is my customer and this is not my customer. In change, it's all of our customers. So it's the only way when you layer PLG on top of the existing SLG, I would say.
Yeah, maybe let me reverse this question slightly, right? And again, this is more of a hypothetical, very theoretical question there. If Amplitude were a PLG first company, meaning they had a very successful self-serve plan, would you have done it differently? Meaning you already have the teams incentivized to get the end users to self-serve, monetize all of the in-app features of monetization, where the end users will find the value, discover feature gates, premium gates, whatever that might be, click on the buy now, and then buys it, right? And only then the sales team will come in and say, hey, you have now crossed the limits of your lowest paid plan, right? Then let me help you in upselling or getting to the newer, let's say, growth and enterprise plans, right? Would you have gone that route, wherein you allow the end users to self-serve a lower level plan without any sales intervention? But because Amplitude is and was a very sales-led culture, and the conversations were already happening with the sales team, maybe that's why the sales team is intervening and getting incentivized to sell both the self-serve plans as well as the growth in the enterprise plan. Am I right in saying that if you had a different DNA in the beginning, you would not have incentivized them? You would have only focused on go after net dollar retention upselling existing customers only and not necessarily adding more to the pipeline because the pipeline is already generated by the self. So would you have thought, what do you think about these things?
That feels easy and perfect. Wow, this is a dream come true when the DNA is PLG first, and then you just layer a little bit of SLG on top of it to go up market. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
That feels amazing because I feel like it's a lot harder to change sales-led growth to product-led growth because of how things are at the sales-led growth organization than the other way around. I feel like it's easy to do it like that, but it's much harder to do what Amplitude did, which is changing the DNA into having heavy sales-led growth culture. When I joined a year and 3 months ago, we just had a newly formed growth team, pretty much, like a newly formed growth team. So we had to come in and say, hey, we're here to help you. And it wasn't easy because they're used to operating as a sales-led growth organization. They're used to not sharing. And here we are, we had to prove that we are here to help you. We're not trying to compete with you. So that is really hard. But I feel like what you're describing, where users move up the market and then once they matured with the product and reached the highest of the self-serve, low, still paid plan, but self-serve, and now they're ready to move to enterprise, let's say, that's when the sales would reach out and convert them. That's like the perfect case scenario. You're saying, imagine that world. That is a perfect world. I could imagine that.
Yeah, and maybe, but that's why Amplitude is a marquee logo with this transformation, right? There's not many companies who have successfully transformed from a sales-led company culture to a hybrid growth company culture. And kudos to Amplitude for that. So let me maybe summarize maybe a few things for the listeners who are probably in this boat where you have an enterprise sales team and you don't have much of a sales. Some of the go-dos that what Katya and Francisca and the Amplitude team have generally advising is figure out, first go back to your design board on understanding what would be the actual personas for each of these plans. Segmentation, org attributes, usage indicators are all falling in that particular bucket on who do you sell which plan. I think that probably goes maybe as the first step. The second step is incentivizing the sales team to not just sell only the higher level plans. And of course, that's where probably the rub is, right? If a sales team is only focusing on $20,000 or $30,000 plus pricing plan offers, what's the need for them to go lower level? Because they have to spend more time and they have to still meet the quota, which means that they will sell a lot more of the self-serve plans, which is probably why they're pushing back on selling a lower level self-serve plan as well. So that's something that maybe the organization's leadership team will have to go figure out how to incentivize the sales and the marketing team to go after each of these segments. I think that's probably a good start. So let me jump into the Plus Plan launch campaign itself. I know, Katya, you've been focusing more on the campaign side, on the conversion side, and figuring out what's working, what's not working, running a lot more experiments and this particular campaign. So could you maybe start with what was the conversion rate before the self-serve plan, before October 17th, right? And I know that when you launched, you didn't have a great uptake for at least a month or so. But as the marketing settled, as the launch settled, you started seeing an uptake. So could you describe what happened during this particular launch and how did your conversion start affecting? And what's the market perception of this particular plan now?
Yeah, great questions. So in terms of the conversion rate, I think Francisca mentioned it. It used to be below 1%, but with the launch of this Plus plan, we got to almost 3%, which is a little bit shorter than the market standard of 4 to 5%. So that's pretty impressive. I think before we get to the campaign, it's important to touch on how this Plus plan came about, and then I can go into the launch of how the launch. I've been at Amplitude not from the beginning. It's only been a year and 3 months, so I don't know since the beginning of how it was ideated and how they got buy-in from leadership. I only know some rumors, and I've been there through the public launch and the beta launch. So from what I heard, it's been in the work for 2 years prior to the public launch. Imagine 2 years of advocating for this Plus plan to launch. It seems like on the market it came out of nowhere, but internally it has been a battle of 2 years. And in 2022, prior to the launch, we started paying attention to the premium plan, trying to improve the activation rate and conversions and thinking of what's going to be included in it. And after we paid attention to that, we started gaining more and more conviction that the self-serve route is the path forward. So then from 2022 to 2023, there was a lot of talk between the leadership to get the buy-in and a lot of work to implement, to build this plan, because it's not easy from product perspective, engineering perspective. And then we launched a beta version in January 2023. So that's when I was there already. And it was beta to existing customers. So it wasn't launched publicly. Nobody knew about it, except if you're a customer and you happen to be on the pricing page, you can go and buy it. So it's, oh, surprise, there's actually this plan. So that was a beta launch. And we saw some early success with it and gained even more conviction that this is the path. And then we wanted to GA in April 2023 with it. But then we rolled back the last moment and didn't GA because we felt like it was missing some of the deep analysis on how would it impact our current pipeline and whether it's going to cannibalize growth and enterprise pipeline too much. So we rolled back last minute. We didn't launch in April. And then finally, 2 years later, we launched the Plus Plan in October 2023. So that's the story of how it came about. I also know that Elena Verna, who was there at the time a year ago, was a big advocate for this plan and for self-serve and for PLG. Big credit to her helping to advocate to leadership for this huge milestone to happen. And we finally did it. So now, how did we launch?
By the way, sorry to interrupt there. I think kudos to Elena Verna and many of your initial teams who probably pitched day and night to the leadership team on why should you do it, right? Sometimes I wonder, you shouldn't have let Elena Verna go and
she
continue.
Has to have more people.
She has to have more people. That's right.
That's right. There's so many companies that need her. Now,
that's right. Sorry, I interrupted you. Please go on.
No worries. In terms of the Plus launch, how did we bring this to market? I am from the growth monetization team, so it's going to be a very biased answer. It was a very cross-functional launch. So many teams were involved: content, brand, product, marketing operations. All the teams were involved pretty much. But I'll speak to what we did from the growth marketing monetization perspective because that's where I had part of. So on the growth marketing monetization side, on October 17th, we launched a campaign that was land for prospects, someone who we lost, let's say it was churned or dormant users who came and then left and then never came back. So retargeting them with this new value prop, with this new plan to see if they're now interested to join us. And also an expand campaign to let our current customers know about this plan and specifically to active users who are ready to move up. Not just you joined yesterday and you didn't try Amplitude, spamming all the user base, but specifically to those who are ready for this plan to move up the PLG escalator. So the messaging itself was about the launch, this big launch of the plan, as well as featuring the biggest upsell drivers of the Plus plan. Why do we think people would upgrade? As well as inviting people to a live demo. So every time we launch something, we've been doing this practice of creating a regional live demo where people would join and see this new plan or feature in action. And that has been working really well for us. So specifically, we launched, as part of this campaign, an email sequence. We launched a bunch of in-product nudges, such as big model on the homepage. That's impossible to miss. So it's like this big model with a hype video. Hype video is like a video under 1 minute that just describes this new feature or plan that just launched, and it gets you hyped. So you experience FOMO when you see this video. And then we also launched a banner, some posts to invite people to the live demo, and designed this hard-coded model, pricing model. So anytime you would stumble upon the paid feature, there was this personalized pricing page model pops up that guides you to which plan has this feature. And that has been working the best, this hard-coded pricing page model, as well as the model with the hype video. So that's what we launched on the growth side. But there was also like a bunch of press releases and content and all the other stuff that other teams launched. So it was a big cross-functional effort. All the teams were involved.
So yeah, maybe let me jump in. I'm sorry for people who are watching this particular podcast on YouTube or something, and you might see my head down. I'm just taking copious notes of what Katya is saying. This is a playbook, right? This is a playbook of sorts. Let me understand this one by one. So when you said live demo, I'm guessing it's probably like a webinar on a regular basis, wherein you're inviting from various regions all the customers, allowing them to register, and then where you're showing them, you're interacting with them, you're demoing the product. That's where you start getting some of these leads, people who have joined in. Is that what it is when you say live demo?
Exactly, except it was just one time. So there's
one time.
live demo happening on whatever date you come to see it in action. There's also recording, but it's one time where like demoing and announcing this new plan. We do have different like ongoing webinars, like to help you, let's say, connect your data. But this one is just a one-time announcement, live demo. And as you mentioned, it works well for generating specific leads who are interested in the Plus plan and then retargeting them later to offer what Plus plan has to offer.
Okay, so that's great. So about the email sequence, did that change from your previous, if I understand correctly, with your starter plan and various, before the October 17th launch, you had a PLS motion and you still do, but you had a different email sequence for them. I'm guessing whenever somebody would sign up and touch up on a premium feature, your sales team would go after them, right, and get them on a call or SDR or something. What changed with this email sequence with the Plus plan?
Yeah, great question. So it was mainly focused around the value prop of the Plus plan, and the messaging kind of positioning was it fits well for startups, for someone who just launched, and it highlights the value of one platform. So Plus plan is unique in a case that it's a one-stop shop for all your needs for analytics, experimentation, and customer data platform. So it has a little bit of each. It has analytics, which is the custom events and formulas and behavioral cohorts. It has experimentation, which is feature flags and advanced feature management, and it has behavioral cohorts. So you don't have to buy 3 different products anymore. You don't have to go to Launch Darkly to buy experiment anymore or whatever you were doing before. It's all, you have a taste of each. And then if you want like a lot more, if you've matured and grown with this plan, now you can go to growth. But this plan has to offer a little bit of each. So the core messaging was announcement of this Plus plan, as well as the one platform and featuring the biggest upsell drivers, such as we learned that people upgrade mostly because of usage, mostly because of behavioral cohorts and custom events and formulas. So thinking that these are the upgrade motivators, we organize the value prop and the messaging in the email based on that, targeting specific active customers.
Okay. Yeah, it does. What happened when the user somehow accidentally clicked on a premium feature? Did that sequence also change? Meaning you would, instead of the sales team now calling the end user, looks like you mentioned about these in-app paid plans. I think you used the word pricing model dialogues or whatever that might be, which are hard-coded. That became the motion, right? Rather than a sales team calling them?
So it's a good question. It actually both. So the pricing page model was great because it's personalized. So if a person clicks on behavioral cohorts, but we have behavioral cohort as part of both Plus and Growth, and if they click on specifically Plus, that's when they are interested in Plus. But if they click on Growth, they want Growth. So there was 2 different motions. There's a motion of free to Plus, and then there's a motion of Plus to Growth, and both had place. And it's a little bit different from a one-time announcement, big splashy sequence versus what we have already going on a mechanized and evergreen as well. That's the difference. It both has place currently.
Got it. I think if I understand correctly, from free or from the starter plan, if they were there, to the Plus plan became more of a self-serve, but Plus plan to Growth plan. So all of these experimentation features, the cohorts and all of that would be more of a PLS as well. Although it was self-servable, but the sales team will also in some ways find a way to connect with them, either as hand raisers or they go in directly to them.
Yep, and that's exactly how the PLG Escalator works. So you have certain motion of how you drive free to self-serve Plus. Sure, they can buy it, but you still have to lead them to buy it. You still have to remind them that, hey, you've already used XYZ. You could also use this feature, or like you need more usage. So we found something that while we send this campaign, the purchases come. Whenever we don't, it's still like they come organically, but less. So whenever there's a big noise and splash about it, it works better. So you still have to lead the free customers to the Plus plan because some of them don't know that there's more paid feature discovery. And then once they're on Plus plan, a specific time frame passes by, and let's say they're on 200k MTUs, which is there's 1k to 300k MTUs, and let's say they're like closer to end. That means, that along with some feature differentiation and outcomes signals, PQA signals that we look for, that means that they're ready for growth. And that's when the sales also overtakes through hand raisers, through usage campaigns of how we define that they're ready for growth. There's like an escalator going up in that way.
That makes sense. Could you maybe share a little bit about the customer journey, purely from the user standpoint? Am I saying this right? So when the user comes to, let's say, the pricing plan pages, and they were not an existing customer to you, it's a new account, new customer, they click on the Plus plan, right, which clearly transparently say $49 a month. They click on it. Do they experience a free trial, or do they have to immediately pay for that month to even experience the product? So what's the experience of, do they go through a trial? If they like it, they automatically get converted, or they have to pay, which is like a gated provisioning of an account. So was it gated so that they pay first, or was it like more of a trial or a free trial, and then at the end of the trial they pay?
Yeah, so it was gated, but not. Let me tell you why. So if they click on Buy Plus Plan, the first thing it would ask them to do is to sign up for a starter account. You can't just buy it right away, right now. Perhaps it's going to change in the future, but you can't just click Buy and buy it right away. You have to, when you click Buy, it's like almost the same motion as when you click Get Started with the free plan. Because in order to buy, you have to be a free customer first, and then you have to buy. So a little misleading, but it is how it works currently. I think we're going to change it soon. But yeah, so you have to first be on a free plan.
And then the trial begins, right? So somehow the system...
Currently, you either buy it or you don't.
Okay. So you start with the starter plan and at the click of the experience, and then immediately the same day you buy it, or do they have to wait for it?
You meant the trial started, meaning the freemium. Yes, the freemium started, which is free forever, pretty much, as long as you're comfortable with what you have. And then at any point, you can go to a pricing page and upgrade again to the Plus plan. But yeah, you have this freemium version of a plan for free forever, as long as this is enough for you of features and usage. You can, and some of our customers are there, I think the average is 1 year before they upgrade to growth.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It will change with the Plus, and it has already changed. I'm pretty sure, I just don't know the numbers. But freemium plan, the downside is that people sit there for a little while before they pay. But yes, the trial starts, and then they can go and buy the Plus plan, which is the next level.
I think that's understandable. Tell me about the day of the launch. So when it launched on October 7th, you had the newly minted pricing pages and all of that. Everything was ready to go.
Yep.
Did you find the users clicking on and starting with and started experimenting, started understanding what the pricing plans are, or they were just browsing? What did you find? Did you get more signups?
Yeah, for sure. On day one, immediately. So once the Plus plan launched, we had a minute-by-minute tracker when everything launches, and blog comes out, landing page comes out, sequence comes out, video comes out. All these things that launched within the span of a night right before that next day of launch. And once it's all out and the sequence is out, we started getting immediately purchases. And most of the purchases driven by what we put out there was driven by this pricing page model, hard-coded one, and the model that we launched with the hype video of you can miss it. This is their announcement of the Plus plan. So it was a pretty exciting day. We had a big celebration in the office, and everyone's really excited, and we did see a surge of purchases right away because of what we discovered. Whenever we talk about it, people buy. Whenever it's quiet, people don't know that the monetization awareness might be missing. So yeah, it was exciting.
I can imagine that celebration maybe the next day or so. Hey, we got 100 customers all paying us $49 a month.
We have a channel where we see every purchase, and it's, yay, next one, another one. And right away I look at my dashboard, my Amplitude dashboard, to see where did it come from. Did it email? Is it the model? Is it the hard coding better? It's exciting to see which effort is actually working. It's like a game.
Yeah, I can't imagine how all of this could have been handled without a very close-knit collaboration between the engineering team. So there are a couple of the points I'm trying to draw from this. Hype video, email sequences, live demos, much of that can be on the marketing side, right? But provisioning of the accounts, figuring out, hey, these are the features, if they click on it, automatically show the modal pop-ups, the pricing plan pop-ups, having feature gates enabled, do in-app purchases. Very likely you might have Stripe or Paddle or some other integrations there. By the way, was it Stripe or was it?
Yeah, Stripe.
Stripe, okay. And then you have all these in-product sequences. You do this thing here, and then slowly, okay, you are nudged to go buy a higher level plan. You do something else, it goes into the higher level plan. So this must have been an awesome collaboration of, I can't imagine getting into a conference room with all of the engineers and the product managers and the growth and marketing team together saying that these are the sequences, and this very likely it might have taken more than a couple of months for the team to actually put this in place, get that tested. And so kudos to you and the team for that. Maybe a couple more questions. Sorry, you're saying something.
On the engineering side, I am pretty biased on the growth side, but engineering has done huge amount of work to get it up and running. Imagine how much work went into it. And just want to do kudos to an engineering manager name is Kelson. I feel like the whole Plus launch went on his shoulder single-handedly. Of course, there's a bunch of other engineers and engineering teams that went into play. But since Kelson is a growth engineer, we worked closely with him, and he's just amazing and really grateful for his just attention to detail and always on attitude, which is maybe not really healthy, but he was just responsive at all times of the day and really trying to get this out of the door. So huge kudos to Kelson.
Kudos to Kelson. Kelson, if you're listening or you listen to this particular podcast a little later or so, and if you're interested, I would love to host you to get more of the spicier, juicier details about the growth engineering and the platform side of the things that you and your team had to put together. Again, thank you so much for your time, Katya. It was a very insightful podcast. To the listeners, if you have any guests, any topics that you would want to, or any use cases that you want to highlight specifically in the PLG or growth areas, this podcast is for you. Would love to partner up with you to bring together a podcast or a blog together as well. And Kelson, would love to partner with you as well. So maybe, Katya, if you can help us get connected as well. Again, thank you so much for your time. Happy growing, happy thriving.
Happy growing. Thanks, Guru. I really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you so much.